I'm going to lecture on 6.1 and a portion of 6.2, and then we'll do some questions. You'll notice we're still talking about inventory. So I think it's important. Let me actually go back. It feels like a long time ago that we talked about inventory, but it's because it was. We had a midterm in there. But chapter 5 was buying inventory and turning around and selling inventory. Okay? It's the stuff. It's the merchandise. It's the stuff on the shelves. It's the stuff on the hangers. It's the stuff that goes home with customers in a bag. Okay? So now we're going to take inventory to another level. I hope you have a pretty good basis of it. Inventory can either be classified as a merchandising company or a manufacturing company. A merchandising company at its face value looks like a retail store, whether that store is online or whether it's a brick and mortar. And inventory is inventory. You know, you could say Town and Country is a merchandising business. They have stuff they buy that they turn around and sell to us as customers. Inventory is inventory. We know that there's some things that make inventory go up. We know that there's some things that make inventory go down. When we sell it, it's two transactions. It's the sale transaction and then the stuff transaction, and you've got COGS involved there. The stuff wasn't free. A manufacturing company is much more like Superior. They're selling stuff, big stuff, huge stuff, but their livelihood is to make it. You know, Town and Country is not making much of their inventory. They don't have a back room where they're sewing Under Armour sweatshirts. Okay, they're buying it and turning around and selling it. The difference with a manufacturing company like Superior, I could keep going with other examples. Superior is a pretty obvious one though. Their stuff is actually classified out as raw materials, work in progress, or the actual finished stuff. The cool part about Superior, and you've probably been through on a tour before, I would assume. Every time I go on a tour of Superior, it seems like I'm there at least once a year. I learn something new. The neat part about Superior, they really, really try to keep everything as much as possible in-house. You know, they're actually taking raw materials and making, you know, you hear about components, the components building. They're actually making the parts that turn into finished goods. More than most manufacturing companies, which is kind of cool. So notice, yes, this is all inventory. It's just called 3 different things depending where it is in the assembly. Okay. No matter what, whether it's called inventory or raw, work in progress, or finished, it's all considered a current asset on the balance sheet. Why do you think it's current? Because they're going to get it out to the customers within a year or sooner. Let's talk about Superior a little bit more. They're what's called just-in-time inventory. They maybe don't call it that, but the just-in-time inventory vocabulary term definitely applies to Superior. Again, this is something else that I think is really cool. They don't have a lot. Well, they kind of have a lot right now. But, you know, like at Heartland where you see all those cars for sale, it's not like, I'm going to come shop for a telestacker today. There's this one, and there's this one, and there's this one, and there's this one. No, they're actually making inventory on the assemblies that are already sold, typically. So it's not like you go shop for a telestacker. Buy, ooh, I like this one. Ooh, this one's nice. This one's nice. Kind of like what you would do with car shopping. Just-in-time inventory means they're making it, and it's oftentimes sold before it's even made. So they make it just in time for the need. Physical inventory. So someone is counting it. Taken for two reasons. If you're running on a perpetual system, that means every single time you sell, inventory is taken off the books. It's also a way to check if there's been shoplifting or employees took it, or from a superior perspective, was any of the raw materials wasted? It's a way to continuously check. Likely with a perpetual systems, there's some kind of barcode involved. So it's bleep, bleep, it's all computerized, typically. Otherwise, this is kind of a big process. Trying to think of what store I was just in. It's actually a pretty bad example. I'll tell you later. But I've seen in Target, I'll tell you when I'm not recording. At Target, I've been there when there's like a team of people. You can tell they're Target workers, but yet they're the inventory people, and they're running around tagging everything. Why do you think now is a good time to be doing that at Target? It's wiped out after the holidays. Now they don't have as much stuff. A periodic system, though, just to revisit what this means, you look at the beginning plus purchases minus sales to equal the end. So what'd you start with, what'd you buy, what'd you sell, then what's left? It's more like, I hope it's about right. It's not nearly as sophisticated or as accurate as a perpetual system, but it works for some businesses. This is what I use with my little Junk by Jenny hobby side business. Yeah, I keep a track of every time I buy a can of spray paint, or of course when I buy chairs or whatever. But it's just what I start with, what I add, what I sell, minus what's left. So this we revisited because we talked about this during chapter 5. As far as taking a physical count, like who physically counts, you either can hire an outside inventory management system to come in and count it, like what I've seen at Target, like I've been there when that's happening. Or you can have your in-house employees do it. They either count it, or they measure it, or they weigh it. You know, at Town and Country, like on the hardware aisle where there's nuts and bolts and screws, and they're not like, I would assume, physically counting 1 nut, 2, 3, 4. Now they can probably just weigh it and know approximately how many are in there. It's usually when a business is closed or really slow. Now, like what Jenna and I just alluded to, now is a great time, like for a store like Target, because they're wiped out after the holiday shopping season. Sometimes these businesses will come in after hours because these inventory people take up a lot of space. They're like literally taking stuff off the shelves and counting, and there's these tags everywhere. And then if I want to come through that aisle and try to buy something, it's cumbersome. So it's more of like a off the clock or behind after closed doors. And it's typically at the end of the accounting period just so you can finalize or close the books. Finalize the records for inventory. Who owns the goods? Well, when they're at your store, you own them. They're there. But what about if they're being transported? Who owns it? So it's a no-brainer. If they're at your store, you've got them, you own that inventory, okay? Whether it's inventory or whether it's that 3-part for a manufacturing, it's either the raw, the goods and stuff on that's being made or the finished. You own them if you're there, but what if they're being transported to you? Who owns them? Who owns them if you purchased them but you've not gotten them yet? Or what if you sold them but they haven't been delivered yet? Who owns that inventory? And it goes back to this. FOB who? So who owns stuff that we've bought but we haven't gotten yet? who owns stuff that we've sold but it hasn't been delivered yet. And it all goes back to FOB shipping, FOB destination. Again, this is a revisit from Chapter 5. FOB shipping, so it means it's free for the shipper. The minute it gets placed on this truck, it stops here and the buyer owns. So the buyer owns it when it's on that little transportation, whether it's FedEx, UPS, BD delivery, some truck, some airplane. Now, oftentimes this carrier is a middleman though. Like if the FedEx truck gets in an accident and all of the packages are strewn all over the highway, do you think FedEx is partially liable for that? Yes. But from a seller and buyer perspective, as soon as that seller puts it on the truck, the seller is out of the equation. Yeah, FedEx maybe has something to do with it, but that's for FedEx and the buyer to figure out if it was free for the shipper. Conversely, if it's free for the buyer for where it's going, that seller actually sees it through and then stops. The buyer, so again, if the FedEx truck has an accident and the packages are everywhere, it's kind of the seller's problem and FedEx's problem, not until it gets to us. So again, who owns the stuff? FOB shipping, the buyer owns it. FOB destination, the seller owns it. If I go back to this slide, that matters. Because that inventory or that sale is on that truck. Yeah, FedEx has some skin in the game, but who owns it? Consigned goods. I'll give you a perfect example of this. Consigned goods is when a business holds the goods but does not own them. So that business is just a place. They're there. Here's my Junk by Jenny chair. At a store called Yesterday's. Yesterday's is a fabulous antique store in Alexandria, Minnesota. Yesterday's is a place you can walk into, but they're technically consigned, which means Junk by Jenny, I used to do this, I don't anymore, rents a space. Junk by Jenny owns her stuff, like the table and the chair and the lamp, and I own my stuff that's in there. I just pay Yesterday's to be a facility for it. Yesterday's does not own my stuff. Typically, when there's consigned goods, there's a contract involved. Like, here's you've got to pay me. If we burst into flames or have a theft or a natural disaster, we don't own your stuff. You do. Trying to think of another example. That's my best one that I can give you. Does that make sense? I mean, you hear them called consignment shops. And in a consignment shop, you can kind of tell the little booth spaces, and they're not owned by the place. They're rented out. So that inventory, from an inventory perspective, has nothing to do with Yesterday's. Rather, Junk by Jenny rents that little slice of their business. That ends the first section. I want to move on to just a little bit of the next section to preview what's coming for the rest of the week. And then we'll do some end of chapter stuff. We know about COGS, cost of goods sold. Typically, the stuff wasn't free. The Under Armour sweatshirts that sit at Town & Country were not free for them. There's a reason they rarely go on sale, because it costs a lot of money for that retailer to even get them from a wholesaler. Here's where things get a little crazy. You have to think of inventory at their COGS always. What'd you buy them for? What'd you buy them for? What'd you buy them for? What was the cost? Now we know that the cost, yeah, there probably was a price tag on it. We maybe bought in bulk, so we got a deal. But there's also some hidden costs. Some things that make it go up, and some things that make it go down. So it's all called inventory. It's just, and again, this should seem really easy because this is so much of Chapter 5 coming back again. The purchase of inventory would make inventory go up. The sale of inventory would make inventory go down. And you saw me always do stuff like this. Like that I can physically touch. Oh, hello, I'm getting this pallet full of sweatshirts. I can see it here. I can touch it. Oh, hello, I'm going to sell this, and I'm going to put it in a bag, and I'll go to customers. I see the inventory leaving. But then there's some things that make it go up. Remember, if we have to pay freight, that makes it go up. And then if we got a discount, that makes it go down. So those are some of the hidden costs that are kind of masked as inventory. The hard part is you don't see it coming in like the pallet of sweatshirts. Like if you have to pay freight to get it there, that actually makes your cost go up. And if you got a discount, it makes your cost go down. It's just hard because cost is a lot more than the stuff. It's acquiring the goods and getting them ready for sale. Like I bet a box of sweatshirts on a pallet wouldn't sell very nice. People would have to dig through it. So the act of taking it out of the box, sometimes you have to like steam them, get them on a hanger, get them on the floor, put them in the right order. That all comes with the price. You're probably paying an employee to do that for you. Why IKEA can be so cheap is because when you go buy a couch at IKEA, are you going to like haul the couch out? No, it's going to come in probably a box this size, and you have to put it together. That's why IKEA can have cheaper prices, because they're not having to do much of the get ready business. The customer has to do a lot of that. Okay. There are 4 costing methods, or what are called cost flow assumptions. I get kind of excited about this because this is fun to teach, and as soon as you get it, your light bulb will stay on because it's like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. But overall, it's a little bit complicated to grasp right away. The 4 costing methods are specific identification, which I'm going to be honest, is rarely used. And I want you to know about it, but we're not going to do it much. Then there's FIFO, LIFO, and you'll hear me call it weighted average a lot. So we know that all of this inventory comes with the cost. When I buy it, when I sell it, when I have to pay freight, or when I get a deal. There's things that it's kind of fluid. It's constantly going up and down. And we are going to attack this idea of understanding cost with FIFO, LIFO, and average. There's a 4th one, specific identification, that we're not going to talk about much. We are going to spend the rest of the week tackling this. And I'm going to confuse you at some points, and I'm not going to quit until all of you get it. Like, I want all of you to understand it, and so some of you are going to get bored because you're going to understand it right away. And that's maybe when I put you with someone who maybe doesn't understand it so you can reteach it. It's right or wrong. It's easy once you get it, but it's going to seem kind of fuzzy until you're ready. When we buy stuff, it all boils down to what we pay for it. And let's be honest, prices go up. One of the ones that fluctuate so much are gasoline. Think about any of the gas places in town. And I'm going to draw a little picture here in a minute for you to, so you can get this previewed. But when you go pump your gas, that gas was not free for the people who bought it and turned around and sold it to us. But the question is, did we buy the gas that cost this or this or this for that person? And I love to use the gas station example because it's not partitioned off. Underneath, there's not a tank that's got, here's the gas that costs $1 a gallon, and here's the gas that costs $2 a gallon, and it's not it all flows into one liquid tank. But FIFO, LIFO, and average it boils down to, when we sell stuff, what cost are we recognizing it at? Because it fluctuates. This should be in your notes. Crivets TV Company purchased 3 identical 50-inch TVs on different dates. Costs went up. I bought some in February that cost $700. I bought some in March that cost $750 and $800 in May. During the year, we sold 2 TV sets at $1,200 each. So the question is, which cost do we take? Because the cost was rising. It went up 50 bucks. So if I sell 2 TVs, 1,200 bucks a piece, which cost am I going to use? Did I take that February TV and say, here you go? No, it's probably some worker at Target selling just whatever TV's on the shelf. They don't necessarily know which cost we take. So FIFO, LIFO average runs this for us. When I sell a TV for 1,200 bucks, which cost am I doing? Which cost am I using? Well, FIFO versus LIFO takes a look at cheap versus expensive. We'll get into it tomorrow and the coming days. Now, I want to just paint a picture really quick to preview FIFO, LIFO average, okay? And I'm going to draw a little picture. So here's the gas pump. And I drive my little car up and I'm going to pump my gas, okay? There's the hose going, okay? So I don't even know what's gas. I haven't filled up lately. Okay. $2.35 a gallon. I still call it Amoco, but whatever, we'll call it Amoco. Did Amoco pay $2.35 a gallon for that gas? No. That is the price that the customer is paying per gallon. Below the ground is a giant tank, right? And what's in that tank? Fuel. I have no idea wholesale prices of fuel. I have no clue. Let's just make one up, okay? Let's just say $1, $2, that'd be, and 75 cents, okay? So the tanker comes in. Here's my tanker truck. And it puts its little hose down there, and it's filling up. There are not partitions in here, right? There's not a partition that when Jenny Mars rolls up with her Suburban, oh, I'm buying the dollar gas that I'm paying. No, it's all fluid in here. I'm buying gas for $2.35 a gallon, but inside of that, maybe when the tanker came in December, it was $1. Maybe now in January, it's $2, and this was back in November. Amoco needs to know, like, what costing method are we using here? Jenny Mars comes and buys a gallon of gas for $2.35. What's it costing us? Well, it matters if we're doing FIFO, LIFO, or average. The first in, first out, the last in is the first out, or are we just averaging it? Because does it matter? I give you this example because you don't see these partitions. When I suck out that $2.35 worth of gas, I don't know how much it costs, and they might not even know how much it costs, but someone at Amoco does. What costing method are we using right now? FIFO, LIFO, or average? The 75-cent gas, the dollar gas, or the $2 gas? It's not partitioned. It's not like here's the dollar gas and here's what I'm using today. It's something you can't touch. It's just a figuratively, like, yeah, we're using the dollar gas today. And we'll get into it more tomorrow and the coming days. In your notes, there should be some buckets, the FIFO bucket and the LIFO bucket. You don't have to find those today, but we're going to analyze it, and I'm going to give you another example of costing. But what you need to know about all of these is it's great, we're selling to these customers, but at what COGS or cost of goods sold are we using? Because prices obviously are fluctuating all the time. Our time is just before 10 o'clock. I would like to do these together. Remember, there might be a little bit of confusion. Trust me, I'm going to keep doing this till you understand all of them. And I think when we get into FIFO, LIFO, average, it's going to make a lot more sense. I just wanted to preview it today. I'm going to just leave my old notes there. Why not? We're going to quickly do questions 1 through 6. And you probably beat me to the pages, but is it page 304? All right, let's read the questions. I'll read them out loud. The key to a successful business operations is in effective inventory management. Do you agree? Explain. Heck yes, it's important. There's a fine line where you don't want to have too much left, but not enough to sell. There's nothing more frustrating as a consumer, and you know this. You go to buy that pair of shoes or that pair of jeans, and oh, your size isn't available. A classmate of mine works for the Gap Old Navy Banana Public brand, and he is partially in charge of this, knowing that these upper Midwest stores need sweaters and hoodies and scarves. Southern California needs swimming suits and tank tops. But yet Minnesota stores need a few swimming suits because some of us might get out of the tundra and, you know, go south on vacation. So it's a sophisticated system of knowing just that perfect amount of having enough to keep our customers happy, but not having so much left over that we have to deeply discount stuff. You also want to keep your inventory safe, having preventative measures for anti-theft. I know they're super annoying, but the little ink things that they attach to clothing are there for a reason. They're probably pretty expensive to have in place, but then you're going to know if stuff's walking out of your door. The newer version is these funny things that they seem to affix to the inside, those like, they're fabric sensors. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? And then you have to cut them out. And typically if the retail person doesn't like wave it against something on their till, it will beep when you leave. You guys know what do you ever see them like kind of running the clothing over some device? And they're basically deactivating that fabric tag. So it's all part of inventory management. Very, very important. It's why a place like Superior has just-in-time inventory. They don't have the infrastructure to have a giant lot of, here, come shop with us. What would you like? And their customers are worldwide. A customer's probably not going to fly in just to shop around. They'd rather just work with a salesperson over the internet, and then the just-in-time stuff will literally come off the lot and get onto a truck, and away it goes. So, number 2, an item must possess 2 characteristics to be classified as inventory by a merchandiser. What are these 2 characteristics? My PowerPoint didn't talk about this, but your book must have. For it to be considered stuff, the company has to own it and ready to be for sale. So had it been FOB destination, that wouldn't be considered inventory because the seller owns it until it gets to us. So we have to own it. It needs to be ours, and it needs to be ready to be sold. Now IKEA, their inventory is always boxed, basically. And so that is considered ready for sale. Now, will a Superior telestacker be any good to someone if all the parts are just laying there? No. That's part of why customers pay what they do, because they expect that inventory to be ready to be sold. Okay. Number 3, your friend Theo has been hired to help take a physical count in the Silker hardware store. Explain what Theo will have to do. Count, weigh, or measure. Count, weigh, or measure. A hardware store has thousands of different pieces. Again, put yourself in a hardware aisle where all the screws, nuts, bolts, whatever are. Theo's going to have a long night ahead of him. But in that case, maybe they weigh them instead of count them. And they're probably going to be doing this when the store is closed, because that's really annoying to have customers messing with all of your counts. Number 4. Rochelle Company ships merchandise to J Company on December 30th. The merchandise reaches the buyer on January 6th. Indicate the terms of sale that will result in the goods being included in Rochelle's and J's. So in other words, these 2 businesses are doing business with each other. One is shipping it. The question is, who owns it when? So Rochelle, let me read it again. Rochelle ships merchandise to J on December 30th. The merchandise reaches the buyer on January 6th. Who owns it when? The goods will be included in Rochelle's inventory if the terms are FOB destination. So it's free for the destination. Rochelle is going to own it no matter when the sale happened until J gets it, had it been FOB destination. They'll be included in J's if it was FOB shipping. So it all depends on the terms. FOB shipper means it's free for whoever sold it, and the minute it gets on that truck, the buyer owns it. FOB destination means it's free for the buyer, and the seller is going to own it while it's en route. B, under what circumstances would Rochelle Company include consigned goods in its inventory? Never. Kind of like my yesterday's example. Yesterday's is an antique store in Alec. They didn't ever own my inventory. I did. Granted, I pay a little bit. That's their livelihood, so they can have it, staffed and the lights on. But unless Rochelle is selling consignment goods as well. So if Rochelle's store, kind of like yesterday's, which that was true, yesterday's had a little section, they own their goods, but they did not own the goods of all of the other vendors that were there. Number 5, Kat's Hat Shop received a shipment of hats for which it paid the wholesaler $2,970. The price of the hats was $3,000. So why a difference? Discount. But Katz was given a $30 cash discount and was required to pay the freight of $50. In addition, Katz had to pay $130 to cover the travel expenses of an employee who purchased the hats. Whoa, they're asking you to figure out, what does the inventory actually cost? $3,000 plus the freight minus the discount. The amount paid to negotiate the purchase is a buying cost that's normally not included in the cost of inventory. So that extra little something, that would be separate. That $130 to cover the travel expenses, that'd be separate. And I would like you to do number 6 because I feel like this is not something new. Number 6 is what we talked about in chapter 5. We've talked about it again in chapter 6. Why don't you record the answer for number 6? Thank you for a good day.